What's up everyone? My name is Nick and welcome to my brand new YouTube channel, CodeStash. So what is this channel going to be about? Well, for the past few months, I've been learning game development using the Unity game engine. Game development in general is something I've been interested in for quite a while, and I decided I really wanted to start to dive into indie game development, and Unity seemed like just the right choice. It's one of the most well-known game development engines out there, all kinds of learning resources, so that's what I chose to start diving in with. So I spent the past couple months working on learning the basics, building small prototypes, reading books, watching YouTube videos, and I've decided that I've enjoyed working with Unity so much that I want to commit to building a full indie game solo within the next 12 months. So that's doing all the programming, all the music creation, all the art creation, everything, the whole package. It might sound quite hefty, of a challenge to solo develop a game within that time frame, but I'm going to make sure, I'm going to try my best to keep my scope reasonable and commit to something that I feel like I can actually finish and deliver within 12 months. So I thought it'd be really cool if I documented this process. I thought it'd be beneficial not only for myself to do it, but as well for anyone who's interested in game development, in Unity development, or the process of creating and delivering a creative package. It's something that a lot of people are interested in, or they feel like they want to do, but they're nervous, they're apprehensive about taking the dive, really committing to something. And I want to use this channel as a way to encourage you to break through that barrier, break that wall down. Because if you wait to start something until you're ready, you're never going to start. You're never going to be ready. There are always going to be things you don't know, topics you're uncomfortable with, or you feel like you're weak in, whether that's programming or art or music or anything. It can be applied to anything in life, not just a game development project like this. So that's something I really want to emphasize with this channel as well, is documenting the challenges that I'm facing, discuss the strengths and weaknesses that I have, that I'm bringing to the table with this project, and documenting how I overcome the challenges and the problems that I face as I go through it. So I'm going to do this by producing devlogs, talking about the different things I'm working on each week on the game, some of the challenges I'm facing, or some of the neat things I've learned. I'm also going to talk about different learning resources that I've come across, whether it's a book I've read, a interesting YouTube video I've checked out, or a blog post I've read that I've found useful and helpful, and share that stuff with you guys. I'm also going to discuss topics that come up within the game industry itself. The game industry is moving so fast. This year we have a new generation of consoles coming out. All that stuff is super interesting to talk about, so I'll probably pick some topics once a week or to discuss and dive in, because I find that stuff really interesting. And I'll also want to use this channel to talk about things like work-life balance. I work full-time as a software developer currently in the industry, and I also have a social life, and I compete in cycling, and that stuff takes up a lot of time, and it can be difficult to be able to take the amount of time you want, really dedicate the amount of time you want to something to make it seem like you're giving it the best chance of success. So I want to talk about that and my approach to time management, and what I do to be able to balance all of these different things and contribute time in a way that I feel allows me to be successful in all of them. So that's what the channel is going to be about. I'm super stoked to get started, and once again, welcome to the channel. So let's go. So I think it's beneficial and interesting for me to be 100% transparent in what I believe my skills, strengths and weaknesses are in terms of what I bring to this project and the challenges that I'm going to face as I develop this indie game. So diving right into what I believe my strengths are, the first one would be that I'm a professional software developer. I've been doing this for quite a while. I've had exposure to quite a few different platforms, tech stacks, technologies, programming languages, architecture patterns when it comes to building and designing software. So one of the biggest, scariest potential blockers to someone who's interested in doing this is programming. It's a major component of game development, especially using Unity. And so, yes, I have professional level programming experience, so that's definitely one major barrier to entry that I don't necessarily have to deal with. I don't believe that should be a barrier to you if you don't have any programming skills currently and you want to get into Unity game development or game development in general or software development in general. I think everyone is more than capable of learning how to program. It's just how you choose to go about doing it and how willing you are to apply yourself to actually learning programming. Moving on to strength number 2, I understand game development and game design. Like I mentioned, I've worked in the game industry. I've released 2 games professionally while I've worked in the game industry. Those were back on the PS3 and 360 days, so a couple generations behind. But I got to see the software development lifecycle of a game from start to finish. I also got to do some game design work while I was there, including things like level design. So I also know the basics about how to design a game, build something that is tangible, that someone actually wants to play, is engaging, and is user-friendly towards the player. So that's another fairly significant starting point that I have over someone who wouldn't have that experience. Number 3 would be that I'm a hobbyist musician currently. I've been playing guitar for 13 or 14 years now. I have some experience playing the piano as well as music production. I've definitely hammered around in GarageBand making tunes. It's not something I do often, and I really haven't paid much focus or attention to it over the past few years. But when it comes to producing the music, the sound effects for my game, there is going to be, I hope, less friction for me there and less of a learning curve because I already have some experience and exposure to those topics. My number 4th strength. I'm very well organized and I know how to manage my time. Some people may have just way too much going on in their lives and they don't know how to narrow down the most important bits and focus their time in the areas where they really want to start to see a difference and start making forward progress to whatever goal they've set. So I feel that that's another strength that I have, and it's a critical part of my current job, and as well as I learned a lot of those skills throughout high school and university. It can be challenging to get through university if you don't know how to balance your time. So in terms of weaknesses, this is always an interesting thing to talk about and an interesting thing for me to think about, as it allows you to, really identify what you should probably work on and maybe pay the most attention to, or just to know in general. They're good to identify them because, hey, at least if you've identified them, you know them, and so you'll hopefully pay more attention to them. So the first thing, and this is a big one for me, math. I avoided math class like the plague in high school. I did the absolute bare minimum that I could do in math to get through it. I've always been intimidated by it. It's not something that interests me, and one of the biggest challenges I'm going to face in developing this project is that even though the Unity game engine handles most of the complex math for you, you're still dealing with things like moving objects in 3D space or 2D space, dealing with coordinate systems or basic physics. All of those things intimidate me. And from the work I've done so far, learning Unity, that's been the most difficulty I've had, is when it comes to interacting with those physics systems and player movement and orientating yourself or player objects in 3D space. So I'm looking forward to getting better at that and learning more about that. Number 2, and this is also a big one and something I'm terrified about, is I'm not an artist whatsoever. Although I feel like I am a creative person, and I express that through doing things like this, for example, or writing music. I have zero drawing skills whatsoever. I don't know anything about 3D modeling, texturing, creating sprites. lighting, all of that stuff is completely unknown to me and very intimidating, but hey, I'm going to get through it. And it's also, I don't want to overwhelm myself with that, so that's one of the reasons I'm going to be developing a 2D game, as hopefully it's an easier introduction into that whole sphere. Number 3 weakness. One of the things is that I don't know C#. So for those of you who don't know, C# is the main programming language that's used in Unity game development. This one's kind of like an in-between strength / weakness because yes, I'm a professional programmer. I've worked with a language like Java, for example. Java and C# are fairly similar. So I don't feel like there's going to be a huge learning curve to C# for me, and I've already begun to learn it as I've done some of the work so far. But I don't understand all of the tools that C# provides me, and so it's going to be a learning process there. Number 4 is, and this one is interesting, because not only has this particular thing been a blessing for me, it's also been a major curse throughout my life. And it has to do with mental health and perfectionism. So I absolutely have dealt with issues of perfectionism throughout my entire life. And that expresses itself in everything from my studies, the work that I do, dealing with something called imposter syndrome, which I'm sure I'll discuss in a video at some point for those of you who aren't familiar with what that is. But it's also been a very positive thing in my life too, because it's driven me to work harder during certain instances where I might have just settled for less. And so I do contribute some of my greatest successes in life to the amount of perfectionism I have, but I'm not ignorant in recognizing the amount of stress it's put on my mental health throughout the years and continues to do so. So I do worry about that on this project, and I'm absolutely going to do my best to not allow my perfectionism to prevent me from creating YouTube content, from getting too caught up in thinking it's not good enough to share with the world. I don't want to compare my content with other creators' content. I don't want to compare my game with other people's indie games or AAA games, because that's just crazy. I'm just one person just learning this stuff. And so I'm really going to try better to focus and keep always moving forward and not get caught up in this cycle of perfectionism where you put your heart into something and then you trash it because you don't think it's any good. You're not valuing the things that you're doing. And like I said, that's something I really don't want to do. I'm going to focus on putting my best effort forward, and what the result is what is going to be the result. I'm going to continue to move forward, learn from something that I think maybe I could have done better, but I'm not going to let it stress me out or beat me down or allow myself to beat myself down about it. So it's definitely going to be one of the biggest challenges for this project, and honestly, I hope it's going to be one of the best personal and professional development things that I improve throughout this process. All right, so what is the plan from here? So in my next video, I'm going to discuss the actual game that I'm making. I'm going to talk about the design of the game, different features of the game, the genre of the game, and I'm also going to show you guys some footage of the actual prototype that I've been working up to this point. As I've been learning Unity, I started working on this idea, and as I learned more and more, I just kept building on it, and once it got to the point where I was like, yeah, this is actually kind of cool, I think I could make a game out of this, that's when I kind of settled on exactly like the execution and the vision of what I had for the project. So I'll bring you guys up to speed on what that is, and I'll also talk about my development plan and the different tools that I use to coordinate all the tasks and efforts that I need to actually execute on to bring this thing to completion. So that's it for my intro video. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you around, and we'll see you in the next video.